Raindrops tapped gently against the old windows of London's historic buildings. On the streets, people hurried by with umbrellas in hand, faces marked with the lines of exhaustion. Yet for Adrian, sitting by the cafe window, this bustling scene looked like a silent film being played before his eyes. Adrian was nearing 50. His once thick brown hair now carried streaks of gray, and time had etched lines onto his face. But in his eyes, there was still a glimmer of the man he used to be in his youth. He lifted his cup of coffee, took a soft breath, and stared outside into the rainy world. That very moment, the cafe door opened and a young woman walked in. Her golden hair was damp and slightly tousled from the rain. Her eyes carried a mix of hurry and distraction. She ordered a coffee from the counter, and as she looked for a seat, her gaze fell on Adrian. Adrian offered a faint smile, and in that instant, there was a subtle recognition, something unspoken but undeniable. "Excuse me, is this seat taken?" she asked, her voice hesitant yet polite. Adrian shook his head. "Not at all. Please sit." She placed her cup on the table and sat across from him. Steam rose gently from the coffee between them, and for a moment both remained silent. Then Adrian broke the pause. "Looks like the rain caught you off guard." She tucked a strand of wet hair behind her ear and laughed lightly. "Yeah. London weather is always unpredictable." Adrian studied her carefully. There was a faint accent in her tone, something foreign, something not native to this city. "You're not from here, are you?" he asked. She smiled, shaking her head. "No. I'm from Madrid. I just moved here for my studies." Adrian took a sip of his coffee. Something stirred inside him, something he hadn't felt in years. Since his wife's passing, his life had been hollow. His children were grown, lost in their own busy worlds. His days blurred into endless hours at the office, his nights drowned in silence. But here, in the company of this stranger, time seemed to pause. "By the way, I'm Adrian," he said, extending his hand across the table. "Elena," she replied, gently clasping his hand. Her touch was soft yet steady, full of quiet confidence. Adrian gave a small smile. "Nice to meet you, Elena." Cafe felt warmer now, though the rain outside showed no signs of slowing. Adrian and Elena sat across from each other, two strangers sharing the same table, yet somehow connected by a thread neither could see. "So, Madrid?" Adrian asked after a pause. "That's quite a distance. Why London?" Elena wrapped her hands around her coffee cup, letting the warmth soak into her skin. "Architecture. I'm doing my master's here. London has history written in its walls. Every street feels like a story." Adrian smiled faintly. "That's true. Sometimes I think these old bricks have seen more than we ever will." She tilted her head, studying him with curious eyes. "And you? Do you live nearby?" "Not far," Adrian replied. "I've worked in publishing for years. Books, manuscripts, deadlines, not as romantic as architecture, I'm afraid." "Books are stories too," Elena said quickly. Without them, even history would be forgotten. Her words lingered with him. He had spent years reading and editing the words of others, but when was the last time he had lived his own story? They spoke for nearly an hour about London, about Spain, about small things that shouldn't matter but somehow did. And as the rain outside softened to a drizzle, Adrian realized he didn't want the conversation to end. When Elena finally stood up, pulling her coat tighter around her shoulders, she smiled. "Thank you for the company." "It was unexpected but nice." Adrian nodded, a little too slowly. "Likewise." And just like that, she was gone, disappearing into the crowd outside, leaving behind a quiet emptiness that the cafe walls couldn't contain. For the next few days, Adrian carried that meeting with him like a secret. He told no one, not even himself, how much he thought about her. The office, while going through manuscripts, his mind would wander back to the way she laughed, the way she spoke with a mix of Spanish melody and London sharpness. He told himself it was just curiosity. After all, what could possibly connect a 50-year-old man with a young student chasing her future? Still, something inside him disagreed. It was a week later when he saw her again. He had returned to the same café, telling himself it was habit, not hope. But when the door opened and Elena walked in, carrying her books, his heart betrayed him with a rush he hadn't felt in decades. She noticed him instantly. "Adrian," she said with surprise, a smile lighting her face. "I didn't expect to see you here." "Neither did I," he lied softly. They sat together once more, and this time the conversation came easier, as if the silence of the past week had only made the bond stronger. She spoke about her classes, the professors who both inspired and frustrated her. Adrian shared small details of his work, careful not to reveal how dull his days truly felt compared to these moments with her. Over the next weeks, their meetings became frequent. Sometimes planned, sometimes accidental, but always welcomed. Adrian found himself laughing again, something he thought he had forgotten. Elena, in turn, seemed to lean on him, not as a peer but as someone steady, someone safe in a city that often felt overwhelming. And slowly, what began as chance encounters started to shape itself into something else, something fragile, unnamed, but undeniable. It was a rainy evening again when Adrian walked Elena home for the first time. The streets glistened under the lamplight, and their footsteps echoed softly against the wet pavement. She carried her umbrella, but the wind pushed raindrops sideways, so Adrian held it for both of them. When they reached the front of her small flat, she hesitated. "Thank you," she said, brushing damp hair from her face. "For what?" Adrian asked. "For this. For not making me feel alone in this city." Her words struck deeper than she could have known. Adrian nodded, his throat tight. "You're not alone, Elena." There was a silence between them, the kind that held more meaning than words. Then she smiled, gentle and grateful. "Good night, Adrian." "Good night." He watched her disappear inside, the door closing softly behind her. For a long moment, Adrian stood under the falling rain, the umbrella still in his hand, his heart restless with a strange, unspoken hope. That night, as he sat by his window, listening to the endless rain, Adrian admitted to himself what he hadn't dared before. Elena had become more than a passing encounter. She was the first flicker of light in the darkness that had swallowed his life for years. And though he knew the world would call it foolish, perhaps even dangerous, he couldn't help but